Okay, so next is item 5, the compliance program update with Brian. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I needed a second to change chairs. This morning is, there are a couple items I'd like to cover with the committee as a compliance program update. One of the things that our organization is currently engaged in, we already have an Office of Ethics and Compliance, and then the compliance program was approved by this committee in June. The charter was amended in September. We've begun a recruitment for the director of compliance, the boots on the ground, if you will, and we have a couple of different things in development that we hope when we get a new person on the ground that they'll be able to pick up and bring before you. But one of our major efforts is really happening in the board governance committee, and that is your own board compliance. And so this board has historically had an ethics training that we've done, a CalSTRS-centric ethics training, and we've done that live for many years. But it wasn't always accessible to all the board members and all the delegates, and it's really an augmentation to the state ethics training. It's CalSTRS specific. And one of the recommendations of our consultant who came in and reviewed the maturity of our compliance program was to tailor or add to the Attorney General's state training. I don't think the Attorney General would really appreciate us editing the state training, so we've augmented it. And so what you'll see, what I'd like to show you is the introduction to the video series, and that'll be rolled out and put on your website for you to review as part of your compliance programs. Before I do, I want to, the presentation is made, in the video is made by Jill Lukens, who's our Senior Counsel for Ethics and Compliance. She worked on this for quite a while. Amanda Connor, who's our analyst, as well as Clarissa Resultant, who is with Communications, also worked on this. I want to point out that Jill has been with us for a number of years. She's a very accomplished attorney. You've all probably had a chance to work with her. She graduated at the very top of her class at McGeorge in the night school by holding down a job and raising a family. She's a recipient of the Order of the Coif, which is an incredible award for attorneys. And I mention this because when you look at the video, I don't want you to think that Jill is doing it only because she's much more photogenic than I am. So can you go ahead and roll that video?
Council. The purpose of these videos is to provide an overview of CalSTRS' ethical culture and ethical guidelines, which can be found in the Board Policy Manual, as well as in state statutes and regulations. This training presentation series is in addition to your biannual online ethics training course developed by the Fair Political Practices Commission and the Attorney General's Office. While the Attorney General's training is very rule-laden, this presentation is intended to provide a more focused guide on where you can locate our ethics-specific policies, as well as highlight how those policies apply to you as trustees of our organization. As CalSTRS board members, you have a historical and continuing dedication to the highest caliber of ethical decision-making and conduct. I know that you do not take your roles as trustees and fiduciaries lightly, and that is evident in the way that you conduct business in a transparent manner that serves as an example to other pension organizations, but also trickles down throughout the organization. This training presentation is divided into 4 short videos for you to view. Each video will focus on a source that contributes ethical considerations and builds on ethical framework. This video is the first in the series and will focus on our CalSTRS mission statement and CalSTRS core values. The second video will focus on the California State Constitution and California state statutes and regulations related to ethics issues. The third video will focus on our own board policy manual. The fourth and final video will focus on your fiduciary responsibilities, including the Statement of Ethical Conduct and the Code of Conduct. CalSTRS mission statement and core values. Our CalSTRS mission statement defines our purpose and sets forth our enterprise-wide goal in serving our members. Our mission: securing the financial future and sustaining the trust of California's educators. In order to accomplish that mission, it is imperative that we act with the utmost ethical and fiduciary responsibility. As our board, CalSTRS will always look to you to continue the remarkable example that you have established. I would also like to talk about CalSTRS core values. Our core values are a set of attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that define the ethical culture of CalSTRS and its employees. C, customer service. We never compromise on quality as we strive to meet or exceed the expectations of our customers. A, accountability. We operate with transparency and accept responsibility for our actions. L, leadership. We model best practices in our industry and innovate to achieve higher standards. S, strength. We ensure the strength of our system by embracing a diversity of ideas and people. T, trust. We conduct ourselves with integrity, acting ethically in every endeavor. R, respect. We respect the needs of our members, coworkers, and others, treating everyone with fairness, honesty, and courtesy. S, stewardship. We recognize our fiduciary responsibility as the foundation for all decision-making. While our core values are designed to encompass all aspects of our business, for this training, I want to highlight the accountability, trust, and stewardship core values. The accountability core value stands for the principle that we operate with transparency and accept responsibility for our actions. The trust core value identifies our belief in conducting ourselves with integrity, acting ethically in every endeavor. And the stewardship core value recognizes our fiduciary responsibility as the foundation for all decision-making. These core values directly relate to the overall CalSTRS ethical culture and additionally identify key ethical principles for board members in representing CalSTRS and making decisions regarding our organization.
Thank you. Excellent work. Thank you, Jill, for all your hard work. So you can cross the first video off your list. There are 3 more that will be rolled out for you to review. That's an example of the type of compliance, ethics and compliance training we'd eventually like to roll out to all of our employees, all of our staff. We're hoping to do that as we bring the program up online. The immediate next steps are to complete the recruitment of the compliance director. We are developing a code of conduct. We have a working group that's developing it, not finalizing, but developing suggestions. One of the first things that we've expended a lot of effort on is trying to redesign or make suggestions to redesign our policy development and oversight process. We have a process now that has been developed over the years on sort of an ad hoc basis, and we need some real update, real scrutiny on that. Things such as, automatic review of policies for updating, the tracking and searching of policies, the including with the policy not just who's the responsible party, but what are the actions to ensure compliance or how the policy is going to monitor. So we have quite a few things in the mix. One of the next important steps we hope to, as soon as we get somebody on board, is to work with Larry Jensen, the chief auditor, and engage in a compliance risk assessment. We are also developing some questions that we hope, ethics-related questions we hope to include in our exit surveys and also in our employee surveys as well. So those are sort of the pieces that are in progress.
My mouse is once again not working, but oh, here it goes. Trying to get Eric up, but I can't seem to do that. Yeah, if you can turn your own mic on, Eric, you're in the queue, and then Betty, but this isn't working for some reason.
Thank you for mentioning that. Actually, that is in the works for the April meeting. We're now actively seeking to have the appropriate person to come and speak and provide that education. So thank you, Eric, for pointing that out.
And is that somebody different from the consultant you already have on board?
Yes, this would be somebody with some outside expertise in the field to provide some pretty significant education. Someone very knowledgeable, like Dr. Yetman, but not Dr. Yetman.
But I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, didn't we already hire somebody with that expertise in this consultant?
Not to do the education piece, no.
Okay, but until we've designed the compliance program, isn't it premature to have an education about that?
No, I don't believe so. I believe that some of the questions that I've heard raised, you know, are salient to having someone come in and address some of the general principles underlying a compliance program. I've heard some questions raised about, you know, how do we determine what we are measuring compliance? What types of structures would an organization like ours or similar organizations look at? What's the guidance that can be provided? What are the questions that committees should be asking and looking for? What are the appropriate resources? I think there's a lot of educational piece that will provide the board and this committee a significant insight as you begin to, you know, to fulfill your responsibilities of oversight of not just the compliance program, but implementation of the compliance program.
We'll get back to this. I'll let Betty, I can't, this is not working. It's just not. So Betty?
Yes, the compliance director that's already been approved by this committee has a direct reporting structure to me, and then will report to the committee. Will provide reports to the committee, similar to the chief auditor. The governance structures, you know, and we really want to wait until we get some expertise on the ground in the director, because the director will be the day-to-day oversight of the compliance program. But the discussions are, what is that appropriate governance? And at least at this point, certainly one of the key features of the compliance program is to have independence. And when it comes to the investment group, we have discussed and will continue to discuss actually placing independent compliance specialists, legal specialists probably, in the investment shop that would have a direct reporting to the compliance program as opposed to the investment management. And that's our hope, that we would be able to create these independent lines of reporting and communication outside of the set management structure.
Yeah, I mean, when this came the last time, we've made some decisions that the ARM committee is going to be responsible for this, that you'll be reporting to the ARM committee on this, that you'll be hiring an assistant that on this, that you're in the process of hiring, and I think our responsibility is to move forward to put in place a system. I think bringing in more consultants to talk to the full board is kind of an inefficiency that while nice, it's an inefficiency for what we're trying to accomplish, which is what we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to put in place a compliance program that is understood as important within the organization, but has the independence that a robust compliance program needs. Thus, I think Betty's question about, the role of the CIOI. I mean, I think those were the issues we talked about last time was this advisory council and what its role would be, how we would work with the infrastructure and the staff that's already addressing these issues in the investment branch, and I think what we need is a plan for how we're going to do this, and I think that should be the focus. I appreciate the videos, and that's definitely a part of this, but I think we Eric and Grant, when he was still working for the treasurer, and you and I had a conversation about this after the last presentation, that really needs to be the focus. And there's some real issues there about reporting responsibilities and all of that, and independence and I think a need to understand whether maybe based on a survey of how it's done elsewhere, whether there's how somebody like Deborah would fit into this when Deborah in fact reports to Chris. I mean, these are the issues that it seems to me we need to be addressing and focusing on. And wanting your feedback on before we get feedback on other things, but I'll defer to others on the committee if other committee members have a different opinion. Betty, and our mics are not working, so just
perhaps to start, really what you see the role of the governance council to be. Whether it's really an initial advisory role or is it one that's going to have an ongoing presence as we get into implementation of our compliance policies, and what the relationship of the council will be to both the compliance director and then, but I think this relationship for me that's important to try to tease out is with the investment office and the relationship of this position to the chief operating investment officer. Because I think those reporting structures are going to be important, and if there's an expectation, there's going to be some coordination. I mean, I just personally will say I would like to see the independent reporting structures maintained.
Yes, I'm with you on that. Eric, did you have something?
Yeah, and I guess kind of the reason why I brought up the board education items, I just felt like it'd be helpful sort of before we begin the process and actually make decisions about issues like the reporting structure and ensuring independence, is that we kind of have some kind of a discussion about, like you mentioned, Paul, sort of what the environment looks like for various compliance programs, sort of advantages and disadvantages, and just to sort of set the table before we actually begin making concrete decisions about the program, which is so important. And
Are you thinking that should be at the full board or at the ARM committee? Because I think the full board delegated this to the ARM committee.
I guess I'm kind of ambivalent on that. I think it would make a lot of sense to hear it in this committee, but I think it's an issue of such importance that to have it in the full board setting, I could see the advantages of both.
It was also an ask in the board governance committee, specifically Controller Yi asked for as well, for that type of broad education piece or broad presentation on compliance generally and the aspects of it. So where it would take place is, I'll leave that up to your decision.
I mean, it's up to the board to make a decision. If the board would like to take over the responsibility, that's fine. If the board would like to just hear the status and convene for the full discussion, but as the chair of ARM, which is right now charged with responsibility for this, I would like to see that the next report comes back and addresses these very issues. These issues that we have been talking about independence, responsibility, what is the oversight of, who's doing it, what's the reporting structure, and what are these, advisory committees, what role are they going to play? I think we need to have, a proposal and an opportunity to have a conversation about it, because we're not going to be able to make any progress on this until we address those issues. And I agree, it would be good to see what others are doing. I mean, I'm not sure. I know from the investment banking world that the arrangement that would include somebody like Deborah being part of the compliance of federal law and SEC requirements would usually not be done. That would be somebody completely outside of the chain of command in investments. Within pension funds, I don't know. So it would be nice to know. It'd be nice to know that. And if it comes back to the full board, if that's the decision, we can discuss it at the full board. I think delegation to ARM was a good idea, and then we can bring it back to the full board once we've had that opportunity. I think that's the purpose of committees and delegating to committees. Betty?
I just wanted to clarify, my suggestion for the governance committee involvement was really as a board education item. And really, I think having the governance committee, in essence, take on some of what's now being contemplated by the establishment of this council, which is to look at what other funds are doing and best practices. So I think that should be the attention of the full board, which then will inform what we do in this committee. So I'm not sure about the timing of whether that item in board governance is going to sync up with the discussion still to occur in this committee. But I guess I would encourage, trying to get our arms around just kind of some contextual information about what other funds are doing and some of the best practices in this arena.
And so the way I'm digesting.
We've got one other board member who would like to comment. Can we hear from Joy?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to, I generally concur with what Paul's comments. I had thought that when we had discussed this, it was back in June, about this, sort of hearing the report from the consultant and the decision to try to establish a program, and I think that's the compliance officer. I had thought we'd be moving forward with a structure. And I guess I'm not familiar, Betty, with some of the issues that you wanted to discuss in the governance committee. So maybe that is something that we need to work with. And I guess I had thought that this committee was going to move forward with looking at a potential structure. And I guess I would just say that it would be, I think it's important that we try to move through it quickly. Making sure that we're educated on the issues, but not, I guess that's what I'm
No, I'm fine with that. I guess I really wasn't clear about the role of this council, and if the council is actually going to do kind of the review of best practices and what other funds are doing, I'm fine. I don't think that board governance needs to, really have a role in that. I guess it was just absent really knowing what the responsibility of this council was, whether it was going to be really doing this work at the front end, or whether it was going to be a council that would, be still involved as we actually carried out implementation. So to the extent that the council's role is clarified, I don't think we need the board governance education piece to bring all this information forward, so.
Brian, you want to talk? Bob wants to talk, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, getting over cold, sorry. Kids, Petri dishes, it's fall. So I applaud the committee for taking on the task of compliance. I'm not an expert in compliance, but I'm not without some modicum of knowledge. I've actually consulted with other pensions on some of this work, your sister pension. But I think I would just say a couple things, echoing what Ms. Higgins said. I think it would be important to not lose the momentum and to get bogged down in details. So compliance programs, it hasn't even started yet. And so it's good to talk about the structure and what that structure may look like. But it's inevitable that whatever structure you start with is not the structure you're going to wind up with, because compliance programs tend to find their own way within an organization, and they have to fold within the existing organization. It's going to depend a lot on how internal audit folds in with it. It depends a lot on the organizational structure that you currently have with a chief operating officer, chief financial officer. And so I think it's admirable, but it's difficult to predict the structure ahead of time. And I think losing momentum over the details of structure and reporting arrangements early on would be a tough thing, would be a disappointing thing. And I don't mean to suggest you should drive on without any thought as to what it will look like in the future. I don't mean to suggest that at all. But I do mean to suggest that it's really in its infancy now. It hasn't even really started. You haven't hired that point person, and that point person will be someone who can provide you some education on what their experiences have been and what that structure will look like here when it will be customized to your particular needs. And so I think it's good to think about what the structure might be and what those reporting lines might be. And there's always a tension controller. You've nailed it. There's a tension between an independent reporting line, but yet an embedded, knowledgeable, closest to the risk, right? And that's always going to be there. And which way you resolve that is going to, and advance resolving that is really tough, let's be honest. And it's going to, like I said, it's going to find its way. So my advice would be, again, echoing Ms. Higa, which is let's not lose momentum. Let's make sure we drive ahead with, in my opinion, hiring this person that's been approved and using them as a resource to build out the compliance structure within the organization. And I certainly don't mean to stifle exciting and great comment about what the structure may look like with those controlling lines. That's music to my ears. To hear that you're wanting to get down in the weeds that fast is great. But at this point, we're at baby steps, and I'd hate to lose the momentum. Thank you.
I don't want to take the discussion backwards, I think, but I clearly heard what the committee is asking of the compliance program. And then what I thought I might have heard was a separate educational piece on compliance in general that was really more for general information as opposed to linked to the ask or the instructions of the committee. In other words, not we need to have this before we do the things that you've instructed us to do. And I clearly heard that that was not a precursor, and it wasn't intended to be a precursor. It was really more of a informational piece that give us more, give the board more information on compliance generally. And specifically, I think part of it was even on board member compliance was part of it. So they're not linked in that way, and that's clearly what I just heard from the committee.
Yeah, I mean, if I can just kind of sum up, and I agree with Bob. We don't want to lose momentum, but I also think momentum means starting to make some decisions about responsibilities and reporting lines and who has oversight over what, and also really deciding what is it that we want compliance with. I mean, what's most important here? Is it compliance with internal policies? I'm not sure we need, I mean, that's the kind of thing that within a given department, people can managers can ensure compliance. I think it's more compliance with things that we don't have control over, such as federal law and state law and SEC regulations and things like that. So I think the first thing is to figure out, well, what are we trying to ensure compliance with first? And then how do we do it in a way that's independent? And if you know, I think there was you know, some questions that arose as to whether the consultant's report was really on the mark for where we were trying to go. But if you're still using that consultant and you're going to have hired the person who's going to be the compliance manager, I think what we want to do is we want to come back and see a plan. What are we ensuring compliance with? Who's doing it? What are the reporting lines? How are we ensuring both independence but also intelligence, as Bob said, about what needs to be complied with, which is always the tension in any compliance program, and then get that back so that we can debate it, you know, pretty soon. Yeah, Nora.
So I think, to Mr. Emmons' point about, I think it's
Okay.
working, I'll try to be very loud. I think to your point about there's the compliance piece of, we already have an expert that can help with the structure. The piece that I keep sort of coming back to is, you know, there's the compliance to the law, but then there's a culture of ethics that CalSTRS, I think, is leading forth, that I think sometimes that's a little bit much more difficult to put in paper. And so for me, it seems like there are two parallel things that have to work together. And part of it is sort of a piece of what we are going to ensure that is part of the corporate governance piece of who we are. And then there's the piece of, you want to make sure everybody's trained so that you can check your boxes and ensure that we're complying with the law, right? And so they're not one or the other. I think there's two things and they have to kind of move in the same direction. But there are some things that have to happen immediately to ensure that we're moving forward. Am I understanding this? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, that I think was a good discussion. And Bob, Brian, at what meeting will you come back with your next update?
In our April
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, good. Okay, well, good. Any other questions before we move on from this item?
Can I just ask one?
Yeah.
Maybe you can do this, or I'm still not, haven't been sitting on this committee, but I'm still not clear on what we're expecting the next report to contain. Or, like, in the conversation, it's not clear to me still what this program is going to contain. I'm still a little vague, and I need someone just to restate in layman's terms what we expect you to bring to us the next time we hear about this, so that it's clear.
In layperson's term, the answer to your question. What does this program contain? What are the recommended structure? Come back with a program structure and content for this committee to consider, to debate, to perhaps give additional instruction on, to adopt whatever pieces that the committee feels are appropriate. And so it is a much more structured presentation about what does our compliance program potentially look like, including all the moving pieces, the reporting lines, some recommended next steps. So I think I would expect to see a very detailed presentation, maybe even with a flow chart or two.
And with the newly hired compliance manager hopefully on board.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, good. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody. Chief Auditor update.
Morning, members of the committee. Before I begin my update, I'd like to just take 1 minute and introduce a new staff that we've brought to the Office of Audit Services, who's here with us today, Ms. Cheryl Dietz. If I could ask her to stand up for 1 second so you can meet her. Cheryl comes to us from the pension system across the river. She was surprised, yeah. She was the assistant division chief there. Cheryl is a CPA. She has experience in managing both internal audit teams as well as the employer audit team. And is no stranger to the pension environment. She has over 20 years of pension auditing experience, auditing both pension benefits, investments, and healthcare. And so it's a great pleasure to have her here with us. She just started on Monday, and she'll be over our internal audit team and accomplishing our internal audit plan as approved by the committee. So happy to have that addition to our team. And you'll hear from her at the next meeting. She doesn't know that yet, but she just learned that. So a couple of items, though, that I just wanted to update the committee on that we've been working on lately is at the last meeting, we discussed our quality assurance review, which is a report that was presented by an external audit firm that looked at our internal operations to make sure that the quality and the work that we do conforms with standards. And they found some very good strengths in there with regards to governance, increased performance of audit services. We also received the highest opinion with regards to conformance with the standards. But they also pointed out some opportunities for us to focus on, which included increasing our proficiency as well as communication. And I just want the committee to know, since you asked me to come back periodically and report that, we've been working on developing some strategic initiatives on how to accomplish those objectives. We'll provide that plan to the committee at our next meeting, and then we'll have some ongoing reporting of the type of progress that we're making. And I can tell you we've already started to make some progress on it, and it's been well received by the management team, and so I'll look forward to coming back with you on our initiatives there. But I just want to let you know we're still focused on that, and we will continue to do that. And that's also one of those things we'll probably never be done with as well, but it's an ongoing opportunity for us. The committee also recently expressed an interest in charter schools, and we informed you that we'll be auditing a number of charter schools this year and report those results to you. Those audits are underway. We've completed one of them. We have an additional 8 audits that are underway. 6 of them are near completion. We have some preliminary findings that we're coming up with there, and it's the kind of issues with regards to post-retirement earnings that are not being reported, one-time payments with regards to being reported to the DB versus the DBS, and then incorrectly reported salary bases is what we're seeing as well, some over and some under. One of the concerns that the committee expressed was with regards to part-time teachers that might be working at multiple charter schools. And to date, we haven't identified a problem in that reporting area. Our system is designed to capture that information from various reporting sources to ensure that a proper amount of service credit is being granted to our member and accumulated appropriately. We haven't identified that issue yet. We'll be finishing these audits, and I'll give a more comprehensive report to the committee because charter schools are really important to us. They serve about 36% of our total number of reporting entities. And so when we talked about that member data issue earlier, that's a significant portion of member data coming into the system that we want to make sure that we're auditing and we're on track of there. Also,
Larry?
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. So we have about 1,750 reporting entities, employers. Yeah, within California, of which 634 of those are charter schools. All right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that'll be part of our more comprehensive report once we complete our analysis, but we're still going on with that. We may have some additional recommendations for the committee to consider as well when we come back to you at the June or after the April meeting. Sorry about that. The financial statement auditor RFP is on track. It should be issued by the end of this month. The committee is scheduled to conduct interviews for financial statement auditor candidates at the April meeting. And so we are on track with that. And then with regards to our audit plan, we have to date completed 25 employer audits. So we're on track to complete our goal of 55 employer audits for this year as well. On our internal audit team, we've completed an audit of our technology infrastructure area. And then also we have several interesting audits that are underway, including cloud computing, contract management, pension solution. We're looking at the internal controls over pension solution and its governance, as well as data migration that will be happening here shortly. And then also an audit of our fixed income portfolio is just kicking off. And so we'll be reporting those to the committee as we make our progress. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? I don't think so. Thank you, Larry. So the review of information requests, were there any?
I don't believe there were any.
Okay, okay. There's the draft agenda for the next committee meeting. Any comments, questions about that?
Well, we need a serious block of time if we're doing the RFP for sure. I just want to make sure everyone knows that that's item number 4, isn't it, Larry?
Yes.
Yeah. So hopefully you all saw that's when the bids will be coming in for your financial auditor. So
Right.
Presumably we'll have a number of bidders for you to go through and review. So that alone takes 2 to 3 hours.
Right.
For that alone, and then you're going to do the compliance program update we just talked about previously, and
Yes.
audit plan progress. So it's a pretty serious meeting, time-wise.
It is. Is that here or is that going to be an offsite? That's here. It's here, okay. Okay,
Correct.
okay. Bob, did you?
Just before we close, Mr. Chair, I wanted to, so this, the big deal today was the financial statements, and there's so many staff that take part in rolling these millions of transactions up into, well, it's not just a few pages, but it's a lot of pages, but they're really sort of the unsung heroes, right? Accountants that sort of keep their heads down, sit on the desk, and just grind through all this. Would you mind if I just did a few shout outs to some?
Please do.
So it's a long list, so here it is, and so I'm going to leave a bunch of people out, and that's too bad. I'm sorry. I can't read them all. And so I'll just, so in audit services, Kirk Marston was certainly a key contact working with the financial statements and audit services. Within benefits and services, Christine Briseno had quite a bit to do. Of course, there's always Art Martinez. Art's been around. I don't know if he's around here now, but he's a key contact in financial services. Art's been rolling up financial statements for years, and I've been saying his name a lot. So Art, thank you for your hard work. But he's not alone in financial services. Janie Liu, Johnny Hu, Lucy Arbuckle helps, Melissa Roth, Shifat Hassan. There's just so many. Thank you all for your hard work. Member account services is a central part. Cassandra Malik-Beck and Valerie Ferris, really just wonderful staff. And of course, in service retirement, Dana Bray. I could just go on, but there's so many staff that just take such a large part in seeing, and they really take ownership of the financials and their little piece of it. And so it's really sort of the unsung heroes that do this really grinding work of accounting. I mean, I think it's fun, but a lot of people don't. And really thank them for their hard work. Like I said, the unsung heroes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Very appropriate comments. Opportunity for statements from the public. I don't see any, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.